Hi, I'm Igor Smirnov and I'm glad to welcome you into this lesson called How to Eliminate Blunders. Today this question becomes really crucial. On account of computers, we play highly tense, highly dynamical games, which certainly raises your chances for a miscalculation or an oversight. Additionally, the time controls become shorter and shorter, which certainly complicates your situation even more. If you observe games from top-level tournaments, you'll see that even that great players make bad mistakes quite regularly. And if we look at the games from intermediate-level tournaments, then we'll see different oversights very often. Actually, it's easily understandable because nowadays we're overloaded with a lot of different information. We have tons of different books, CDs, videos in the internet filled with a lot of different rules. And while playing a game, you need to remember different opening lines, calculate variations, evaluate positions, compose plans, and do a lot of other things. And that's why if you are not a very experienced player, it will be difficult for you to keep all these things in mind, and therefore you can overlook something easily. That's why a blunder is the main reason for loss in amateur games. Just remember how many times you had a superior position but spoiled it because of an accident, a sudden bad mistake. Remember how many times you played against a weaker opponent but overlooked his tricky idea. At the same time, there is one good thing here. If you know the problem, you can solve it. And that's exactly what we're going to do during this lesson. We will learn how to eliminate blunders. Before we move on to the specific advices, I'd like to make one last note. All the techniques included into this lesson have been tested by me and lots of my students and have proved its high efficiency. So you can be sure that all these methods really work well. I'll give you a complete set of recommendations from the very beginning till the end. We'll discuss what you should do before the game, during the game, and even after the game, so how you should train properly. If you implement these recommendations and eliminate blunders from your games, this will make you a much stronger player, and this will make your results much more consistent, much stabler. So I encourage you to take it seriously, because these rules are much more powerful than it may seem at first glance. Okay, let's get started. Here's the first advice. A warm-up before the game. What does any sportsman do right before the competition? Yes, they warm up. I really can't understand why most of chess players don't do it. Let me give you another analogy. Let's imagine that you're driving a car and you want to move as fast as possible. Obviously you can't do it right instantly, in 1 second, because first you will need to spend some time to raise your speed from 0 till the maximum power of your car. And only after that you'll be able to use this car to its full potential and to provide its best speed. And the same chart is applicable for any sportsman, for any physical activity, and for any mental activity as well. For example, obviously you can't deeply concentrate on something within 1 second. You will need to spend some time on it. That's why I encourage you to warm up before the game, because this will allow you to make your best and to use your full potential. Now, what should you do exactly? I can advise you two good things. First, you can solve tactical puzzles, and secondly, you can perform a visualization. While talking about tactical puzzles, you need to take about 10 simple tactical positions and perform them. Again, let me emphasize, you need to take simple positions, because this is a warm-up. You definitely have no intention to exhaust yourself. And while talking about visualization, you need to visualize some chess moves without looking at the board. This is a very powerful technique indeed, because while visualizing the variations, you need to have a very good concentration, a very good focus on chess. And that's why this will really allow you to bring your mental skills at the top shape. How can you visualize the variations properly? Well, this is a whole separate topic and I can't explain it here. Moreover, I've already explained it in my course Calculate Till Mate. But nevertheless, I'd like to give you some hints related to our current topic. Let's think about what you should visualize. I suggest that you visualize two things, either openings or your winning games. First, you can visualize the opening lines which you're going to use in this current game. Thus, it will be a warm-up and a repetition of your opening repertoire, of your opening lines. Secondly, you can visualize your best winning games, and this is an extremely powerful thing. Besides being a good warm-up, it also inspires you and fills you with a lot of positive emotions, and this makes you feel like a winner before the game even begins. Well, of course, you need to remember your best winning game before you can visualize it, and it's pretty obvious how you can do it. You need to create a database of your own games, maybe you already have it, then go through these games and select your best winning games. After that, remember them, and before your next tournament game, you'll be able to recollect one of your best winning games and visualize it without looking at the board. You can do it when you are going into the trading hall, or when you're sitting in the table and are waiting before the game begins. And once again, let me repeat that this is a great thing, both as a chess tool and as a psychological tool. I gave you several recommendations and you may choose the one you like better, but in any case, you need to warm up before the game. Okay, let's say you have performed a warm-up and now you're in your best condition and you're sitting in front of the chessboard and are waiting for the chess game to begin. At this point and during the game, it's very important to focus on chess. I mean, not to think about any outside things like the result of this game, how it will affect your rating, your final standing at this tournament, whether you'll get the prizes or not, or anything else. We're humans and it's natural for us to care about the results, to think if we're going to win or lose this game, to think if you are stronger or weaker than your opponents, and so on. However, this whole thinking only makes you feel nervous, and nervous players make silly mistakes often. So it's better not to do it and to focus completely on chess. I know it's easier to say it than to perform it, so how should you do it exactly? How can you focus on chess? For example, you can use our previous advice. You can do a visualization, because when you focus your attention on the visualization, you simply have no mind resources to be nervous and to think about something else. So if you will visualize the variations in your head, you will think only about chess, and that's exactly what we're looking for. All in all, during the game you need to focus on chess solely. There is time to think about other things between games. Now we're moving forward. Imagine that the game has begun and now you're playing in an opening stage. There is one important thing you need to know about here. Avoid tactical openings when your opponent is better prepared. What do I mean by tactical openings? We're talking about sharp positions with lots of forcing variations, complications, tactics, and so on. In such complex situations, chances for a blunder are huge. If your opponent is better prepared, it gives him a massive advantage. He will play the best moves suggested by his computer, while you will have to think by yourself. Modern computer programs are very strong, they have a rating above 3000, and I bet you don't want to compete with them, especially in complicated tactical positions. Most likely you will miscalculate and will make an oversight and will lose the game instantly. That's why you should avoid it. So avoid tactical openings when your opponent is better prepared. How do you know if your opponent is prepared better or worse than you? Well, let's say he plays his moves very quickly, showing his excellent preparation, or another situation, your opponent is playing the variation which he haven't used before, and it's obvious that he prepared it for this game against you. So quite often you can realize that your opponent is prepared better than you. Another example, let's say you see that you're getting involved in a certain complicated opening and you don't remember the book moves very well. In all such cases, you should avoid this tactical opening and choose something simpler, something calmer. Let's say you're playing white, and after your move e4, your opponent, who usually plays e5, instead of that, suddenly invites you into Alekhine variation by playing knight f6. Obviously he prepared something, and you know that Alekhine defense is a complex variation with lots of tricky ideas, and that's why instead of going into the main line with e5, you can do something simpler, something calmer. For example, just play knight c3. Of course, this is not the most ambitious move, and maybe you won't get an opening advantage, but at least you'll get a secure position and nothing bad is gonna happen with you here. So this is how you can avoid tactical variations when your opponent is better prepared. Let's imagine another example, and once again you're playing white and you start with your normal moves, Sicilian defense, and here your opponent plays g6, starting the dragon variation of Sicilian defense. And at this point you realize that you haven't repeated the dragon variation for quite a long time and you don't remember the following lines good enough. In such a situation, it will be better not to go into the main lines with bishop e3, f3 and so on, but choose something simpler, something rather positional. For example, you can play bishop e2, then castling, and you have a normal secure position. Again, this is not the most aggressive variation, that's right, but you'll get a secure position and at least nothing bad is gonna happen with you. And otherwise, if you don't use this way, if you go into the main lines, you'll be vulnerable for tactical oversights and you'll give a chance to your opponent to use his opening preparation. This is a game between two strong grandmasters, Kramnik and Ronan. We can see a complex position with mutual chances. Black played b5, and most likely he expected a natural check knight d6 where black is okay. However, white suddenly played knight e5 and white is going to play queen f7 mate. Black can't take the knight because this will open the f file, enabling white to play queen f7 mate anyway. And that's why black is really in a huge trouble. The only move to cover f7 square is rook f8, but after knight takes d7, black can't recapture the knight because of his hanging rook on a8. White won this game afterwards, and it looks like just a sudden blunder made by a very strong player. So if we make a few moves back, it seems like the black's mistake was just a sudden oversight with his move b5. But in fact it's not. This is not a sudden accident, and this is a logical consequence of the wrong choice made by Aronian on the third move of this game. The game started knight f3, d5, c4, d4, b4, and here black chose a sharp line f6. It leads to complex tactical variations, and it's wrong to play such a complicated opening line if you're not aware of the following lines and if you're not completely confident in your opening preparation. Otherwise you will spend a lot of time, you will miscalculate, and there is a great chance that you'll overlook something and will lose the game. This happened with Aronian, and I hope you learn this lesson and will not fall into the same trap in your own games. Now let's go ahead to the next advice. Let's say you have chosen a secure opening line and have passed this stage of the game flawlessly. Now you're out of the opening book and it's time for you to think independently. Perhaps it's middle game. There is an important thing here which you need to know in order to prevent blunders. Here it is. Keep track of your opponent's plans. How should black play here? And generally, what should you do when it is your turn? Perhaps find the candidate ideas, analyze them, and attack the best one. Is that right? No, it's completely wrong, because first of all, you need to think about the last opponent's move and ask yourself what is the idea behind the last opponent's move and what is he going to do next. In this game, black wasn't aware of this recommendation and he played a5, trying to realize his plan, his attack on the queen side. White sadly answered bishop takes g6, and now he's winning instantly. For example, if black takes with the bishop, white plays f7 and he reaches the black's king in all the variations. Like bishop takes, then queen f6, and queen g7 is unavoidable. Also, black could have taken with a pawn, but it doesn't change much because still the white's queen reaches the g7 square. Queen h6 and then queen g7. Black player is a grandmaster, so why did he overlook this relatively simple combination with very short variations to calculate? Simply because he was focused on his own plans. Keep track of your opponent's plans. Well, let's be realistic. It's natural for us to care and to think about ourselves, first and foremost. You can be excited about a certain possibility and you will start calculating this variation, and after some time you'll realize that it's time to play something because, you know, you have a time limitation while playing. And that's why I'll just play this move and you'll forget to care about your opponent and to think about his plans. That's why you should think about your opponent's ideas first. Before starting to think about your own possibilities, you need to think about your opponent's plans. So right after the opponent's move, ask yourself this question: what is the idea behind the last opponent's move and what is he going to do next? If you ask yourself these questions, you will always be aware of opponent's plans and will never overlook them. And if you think about your opponent first, then you will never forget to perform this step. This is a very powerful technique, and I encourage you to take it seriously and to train it and to try to perform it constantly. Of course, I have some other anti-blunder techniques for you, but at the same time I don't want to overload you, so let's pause this lesson here And in the second part of this lesson, I'll show you the anti-blunder methods for the middle game stage and how you should train to eliminate blunders. If you're subscribed for my lessons, you'll get a notification to your email. You'll get it in a few days. And in the meanwhile, I strongly recommend that you train the rules from this lesson and try to implement them in your practical games. It was my pleasure to talk to you, and we'll talk to you soon in the second part of this lesson. Have a good day. Goodbye.